going down. Y'all know what time it is. We ain't playing with you. In the club, in the street. Shut up! Y'all know what time it is. Get ready for it. Oh, strongest man alive. Way to be quick. Step up, bring it. Yes, sir.
Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split.
Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck.
How could I be scared of a man? I walk through this land like a runner's man. Never can you imagine the pain that I bring. If I said I'm a joint in the streets of the thing, it's the K-I-N. G-N Hill, wildest band in the world, and I have no fear. I'm the mean and the mean, the nightmare dreams, the root of all evil. Weak fear me, yeah. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split.
Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. I'm a crazy and I'm coming through the door. Quick to whoop you up and knock your ass to the floor. Think I'm playing with you, but this fist gon' hit ya. Always in the hood, number one with splitter. Never try to stop, cause you know you can't compete. Live by your rubber, get thrown in the street. It's more about the act up, you better cop a back. Come on, be the next fool in the hood, body stack.
Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split.
Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck.
See, I'm a hard hitter, one hitter, quitter. Step up to me, little buddy. You stepping up to a gorilla. I bang your head down to your head like egg dog. Don't think I'm scared, dog. I leave it red, dog. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split. Somebody gon' get their ass kicked. Somebody gon' get their wig split.
Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck. Beat 'em up, beat 'em up. Break his neck, break his neck.
All right, we're talking Raw versus Slab. What do y'all think?
Biggie.
No, I couldn't, dude. I just told her I was doing this for a little bit, then I'm gonna go. But if you can hop in, you can, dude. I'm sorry. So today is Slab versus Raw. I am a fan of both. I feel like slabs are okay, but I'm more of a Raw fan. I get why people like slabs. I think I'm not too much of a serious get every penny out of a book guy. From my experience, it's easier to sell a Raw book. It's less time, less inconvenience. Now, I've seen books that you could slab and make some quick money off of. But for me, it's not worth the wait or time to hope you get a 9.8 or high grade. Usually I run across mid-grade books that ain't worth $1,000 anyway. If they're 9.8, then yes, go for it, I guess. But you have to pay the slabbing company to be able to use their services. You have to pay for them. And a lot of people that make that argument are people that just keep the books anyway. Like, they're not really using the books to sell them. I don't know. I feel like generally through the community, people enjoy raw books more from what I've seen in the chat. But I think the more high-end collectors do enjoy slabs. Now, does that mean modern 9.8s and 9.6s? Maybe. Does that old school silver and gold to preserve their books? Possibly. But overall, generally, do I regret not slabbing some of the books I've sold? Not really. I feel like it comes and goes, you know. You win on some, you lose on others, right? A lot of books, if they ain't 9.8, they ain't worth even fucking with. So for me, it's just like meh. And then if they're old cool books like gold and silver, then I don't mind having those raw either. So I think until you've seen a so-called dollar bin book in a high grade and people try to sell them, if they're not currently trendy and hot, then they're not worth dealing with, in my opinion. And I do think it's easier to sell a raw. They haven't been yelling all night. She's really a character. All night, not a word, not a peep. What we got? At least 5 channels roasted sticky. That's nice. What do you think about pressing before submitting to slab services, especially modern books? What do I think about it? I think that if you're going to be technical, when you press and clean a book, it's almost like restoring a book. So when you restore a book, you could get marked for cleaning. I don't pressing even. I've seen marks for pressing. Hey D, what's up, bro?
Hey,
I hope I ain't fucking your dinner up. I really just couldn't wait. I just got done telling Melody I was doing something, so I just started.
it's all good, man. I just asked you if we were going live, and then you didn't answer, and then you just sent me a link.
Oh, I didn't see that part. I saw it in the private chat after I already clicked live, so I was just you back.
It's all good.
I seen in pressing. Have you ever seen a grader's note about pressing a book yet? Because I have.
Say that one more time.
Have you ever seen a grader's note about pressing a book? Because I have. I was just wondering if you've seen it.
Like, what did the note say?
This book was restored and pressed, I believe. What it said. I forget who had the book. I have to think about it, but I know I've seen it.
I know for a fact that pressing is an acceptable form of restoration because you're not adding to the book in any way, shape, or form. You're fixing defects that do not need to be permanent.
I wonder why that was in a grader's note. Book was pressed. Maybe I imagined it. You think it was clean?
Nothing. Yeah, no, like it. I'd have to see that note.
Don't you find that a little interesting that CGC provides those services, but they are forms of restoring a book?
But I agree with their definition of restoration. Like they've decided that pressing is not restoration because you're not adding anything to the book. It is still the same book. You're just you're just fixing some minor flaws in it that can be smoothed out without putting paper into it or coloring it or trimming it. Like
Yeah,
restoration pretty much always is about adding pieces to the book, adding staples to the book, color touch and trimming, those sorts of things. Those are all
well,
adding or subtracting from the book.
what about cleaning though?
I mean, a cleaning is you're taking a defect off of it without removing paper.
So it depends on what form of cleaning you use, which one's acceptable. Is that what
Yeah, I
it
mean,
is?
if you clean the ink right off the book, that'll hurt the grade. Um,
I wish
I mean,
Hudat was here. I feel like Hudat saw the pressing one. Didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, you're good. It just cleaning is definitely a bigger task on a book, but it once again, it's not. Oh, Bleecker knows about pressing.
Do
Yeah,
you need me to make it big?
yeah. He said pressing is the same as putting a book under a heavier book. It's just quicker.
All right. Well, I could have swore I saw somebody say they had a book that had a grader's mark about pressing. Let me see if I could Google it. But sometimes you can't find shit on the internet. I just wonder what the difference is, because is there grader's notes about cleaning books? I'd imagine there is.
See now, if you did it properly, I would doubt that there is. Like, I, I, I think that it's pretty clear what they allow and don't allow on that. Like, now, I could imagine that they said something maybe that book was pressed, which caused damage or something. I know that would be too much of a note.
Okay. Here's a grader's notes that popped up from CGC. It says, I have a book that is already graded a 9.8. The grader's notes say very light bends to cover, very light spine stress lines to cover. It doesn't say pressing anywhere, but it kind of insinuates a spine roll was pressed out, I would guess.
Yeah, but if you press it, if you press it correctly and don't cause any damage to it, then there would be nothing to report.
No, but yeah, I don't know. I just think it's a little weird. I consider pressing and cleaning a part of restoring. The other stuff you brought up, like staples and trimming and collar touch. Out, bub. Shut the door, please. I don't know why he does that. Um, it's been busy but fun. I'm spending today reading some comics, and that's always fantastic. How are you? Okay. What up, John? Good to see you. Um, so the pressing and restoring and stuff like that, I feel like it's a little fictitious for them, but that's just my opinion. I hear what you're saying. Like, if they do it properly, it shouldn't be an issue. But I feel like in my hardcore collecting definitions of anything, once you touch the book, I mean, sure, you could put a book under a stack of books and that's kind of pressing it. But when you go out of your way to try to modify a book, and even if you just take an eraser to knock off like a food crumb off a book, that's somewhat restoring a book, in my opinion. You know, like there's such thing as a patina to antiques and way I understand things. So once you get it, that's kind of how the way it is. As soon as you start modifying it, that's restoring it. That's just the way I look at shit. Like you can't say the Mona Lisa has never been touched. It's been restored. Is it a bad thing? Probably not. You wanted these things to last a while, but the fact is they've been fucked with, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I really like the idea of not adding or subtracting from the book. You're not if you can do something to the book that doesn't You're not adding pieces. You're not adding paper. You're not marrying the cover. Like to me, that's I do not call that restoration.
Mm. So you recently added some books to Elite. D's got some books on Elite. You
Yeah,
brought up the fact that you bought that one John Byrne spectacular black suit negative cover for like $20, and you had a slab for I guess $20 to $30. So that's like a
yep.
$50 investment, and then you're going to sell it for around $200 to $300. What up, Rob?
Hey,
Yeah,
Biggie.
sold it for 250. Hey, Rob.
You already
Hey.
sold it.
Yeah.
So one of the things I wanted to chime in on, they just recently, in the last few years, within right after the pandemic, they were restoring the Sistine Chapel from Michelangelo, and when they were cleaning it, they wound up seeing colors that they never thought existed. Is it really restoration if all they're doing is cleaning the grime, not adding any extra paint, or is it just maintenance?
I don't know. I feel like it's restoration to me. If you, it wouldn't that be taken away from what is a patina? Isn't that dirt and grime?
Yeah, I mean, if all you're doing is cleaning off grime, you might have known something for a period of time just with lots of grime, lots of dirt. But once you clean that away and you start to see it as you did on day one or the first year, I'd imagine it's still just maintenance. And there's still that one type of grade when people wind up changing out the staple. And that's completely different. That I do consider restoration. But as long as you're not adding to it, but just maintaining it as it originally was intended to be, I don't see why it should be dinged for restoration.
Have you ever heard of some collectibles, maybe like a baseball that was used in a Babe Ruth game, and they say they cleaned it and they got rid of the patina and it made the ball worthless? That's the kind of shit I think
As
of.
I've learned recently, there was that show on Netflix where there's people that say, wait, did he put this through the washer, or is this the same uniform that Babe Ruth wore during the game? Because if you put it through the uniform, I don't want it. I want a stench on it. I can understand that. It's the same way that people want that feet stuff online. And wait, did you wash it? No, I want it worn. That's one thing, but I guess when it comes to comics, would you rather have it with that dirt that might have been in somebody's garage in the 1970s with cockroaches and silverfish and God knows what else crawling all over it? Or would you rather be a little cleaner, like, when it originally came to the nasty shop in the 70s?
So it's a lot to consider, I think. But we was talking
Well,
about D's investment on his $250 sell he had on Elite. So if you was to sell that book raw, potential 9.8, what do you think at the highest you could have got for it?
Oh man, I can look it up. I guess.
Maybe, yeah. I guess you haven't really done much homework on it. I would guess maybe $100 for a high grade of that book, maybe something like that, or less. Um, do you run across a lot of opportunities that way, or is that kind of a rarity? I guess he froze. I thought.
Um, that that I used to do it a lot, where I'd press like a $30 book, and I did get that one pressed. Um, and then sell it for a good profit after it gets graded. But it's been a while. But yeah, no, man, it was a good sale, man. I made some coin, and I exchanged that coin for services and goods.
Right. Um, you're a pretty good collector there, near Mint. I believe you're a Raw fan, aren't you? Or am I crazy?
I only have one book that's graded and I still need to pop it out. And much like I had a question for D myself, because I know you press a lot of books and I have one press. Uh, Being a court reporter, I've noticed that certain things go through a certain amount of cycles before it eventually breaks. And I have heard of stories of people breaking their press. Do you just have one, or do you have multiple ones, or have you had ones break in the past?
I actually don't personally press my books. I send my books out to get pressed. I do have a press. I've just never been manly enough to actually go in there and use it.
You could take some 70s books of Archie that's already half fallen apart just to practice.
Yeah,
That is
he
true.
just hasn't tried yet, but I've talked to D
Yeah.
about that before.
I mean, I just know there's differences between the size of the book, meaning just the when you're looking at it between this and a square bound, you have to have the settings a certain way, and after you use it a certain amount of times, that piece of steel that you have to wind to clamp will eventually break. So it's almost a consideration of, is the book press worthy if you bought this thing for a certain amount of money, or is it a shit book that you're just trying to take care of, and after a while you just get used to the idea the press is going to break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I
don't.
mean,
So.
yeah, eventually something will break, but I guess I you can always inspect, the hinges on it and the bolts and whatnot. Make sure everything feels like it's opening and closing smoothly before you slap a big dollar book in there.
No one wants to put in that Werewolf by Night 32 and have that the last one where it winds up being iron marked.
Yeah, no, you definitely. I mean, if I did start pressing books, I would always press like a shitty book first to make sure that it's still kicking out the right wattage and whatnot.
Now, Rob, why is it that you do not prefer slabs? Can you indulge me on your opinion?
I mean, it's a lengthy one, but basically that I kind of look at slabs as a Ponzi scheme that one day these companies will wind up having just enough scandal that after they buy each other out, it'll be, as I say with retail, it doesn't matter what I think or you think, it matters what everybody thinks. And if you have enough people that lose interest in the slab, the other side of it is that when I'm buying these raw, I'm spending less money. When I can spend more money elsewhere instead of on something that'll take up that much more space, because let's face it, if we're collectors and we're active, we're going to eventually run out of space, and slabs are space killers.
Hmm.
Eventually, I could slab them, but today's just not that day.
So it's mainly, or one of the reasons for you is for space.
Yes, space and cost. You can
Yeah.
wind up using that money to buy another book or another two or whatnot. Much better that than buying that one book that's in the slab. Great, you know how much it costs, but uh, again, court reporter, so I do notice a lot of things when you hear of floods, and that stuff is water resistant. It's not waterproof. If you have a flood in your home, yeah, it'll work for a point, but if it's submerged, like what we've been seeing in the recent flooding around the hurricane the other day, it's a goner no matter what.
Mm.
9/8 be damned.
So I'm gonna get to you in a second, D. I just want to point out one more thing.
Yeah.
I hear like people say for preservation and for economical use or whatever. And for preservation, like as far as I could tell, all the books I've handled, I've probably damaged 5 to 10 with my own hands, out of thousands of books. I don't think I really damage them that much. And recently, people have been saying that a lot of times when they get their books graded, the people that are grading them, they come back with more defects than they sent them. Now, it could be the mail, it could be the grader, and even the mylars they have on the inside of the slabs have been bending them. So you have to take those risks when you grade a book. I feel much safer having it at home. So, I know you're a fan of slabbing. You paid for slabbing. Can you tell me what you think are some of the best benefits about the grading?
Oh, I love the presentation of it. It like now don't get me wrong. When I look at Rob's presentation, if you full screen him real quick, I love his room. It's probably the best background of any YouTuber that I know.
But
Um,
again, you could add the 9/8 above it and it would look even better, I'm sure, to the proper collector.
yeah, but your your setup looks fantastic, and you have found a great way to display your books without slabbing them. Um,
Thank you.
I I don't have that that area to do that in. Like I've got like a little shelf behind me,
Neither do
and You found a way to make it work.
Yeah, yours looks
You
better.
see what I want you to see.
Yeah, true.
It's not crazy bad, but yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, no, for me it's presentation. Also it's the fact like when I bought my X-Men one, um, uh, I got it. Like I know now that I have a reasonable suspicion that it is complete and that it is because I know I'm talking to someone that works in the legal system. I can't say that it's a fact that it's complete and that it's never been restored, but it's probably been looked at by a professional that looks for those things, and it made me feel better about buying the book than I would have if I bought it raw. Because um, odds are, if I would have bought that book raw, I would have probably had to buy it online. Online meaning I don't get to see it in my hands, I don't get to inspect it myself. Um, uh, Rob definitely has a cat in the background that's going ham on one of his books. Um, that's undisputed. Uh, um, but no, it for me like buying a big book like that, it's worth it to me to pay a little bit more to know exactly what I'm getting. Now, like Biggie, when you bought your Hulk 181, you knew that it didn't have the value stamp.
Mhm.
So you didn't. That wasn't like a surprise to you when you got it. But
Mm-mm.
man, you got to admit there are people that have probably been taken by that. That you know that didn't know that it was technically incomplete um, when they bought the book.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
And
I
one thing
bought
I can
mine.
chime in with real quick, I go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say I bought mine raw, and it's significantly cheaper than an green label slab. So I'm happy with my purchase buying it raw without a stamp. But go ahead,
yeah,
Rob.
So last year, I wound up getting an Avengers #2. The price was right, and I kind of figured out a little bit too late why the price was right. It was trimmed. Had I bought it offline, I could have looked and compared a raw book to another raw book or even a graded one to go, this seems just a little bit off in sizing because I didn't realize it until I got home when you're putting it in the Mylar. Oh my God, this thing's trimmed. I'm okay with it because I don't grade stuff and it's going to stick in the collection, but it's part of that don't have starry eyes. And when you see something, doesn't matter what it is, how big of a book, check it out to make sure it's complete. Count the pages, know how to count.
I feel like there's more to gain. I think there's a reason why we don't see a lot of big books raw. Because as soon as they hit the market, dude, people look at them, they evaluate them at the right price, they buy them. When you see a slab on the market, it's usually priced at the GPA at the least, maybe a couple $100 less. So I get excited when I see a big key that's raw. If I could pick a raw book priced cheaper than a slab, I'm all over it. That's just the way I am. Because if I could save $200, $300, $400, then I can get another big book. If you buy a slab book, there's not really much wiggle room to save on slab books, in my opinion.
so hey, to answer your question from earlier, my Spectacular Spider-Man 101, the John Byrne cover, the last recorded sale of Near Mint Plus, which is 9.6 to 10.0, was $56, and that's a raw grade. So like it's not an actual grade. It could be less than that, but it sold for 50 cents.
Damn.
Um, so my graded copy sold for 250.
Yeah, at a perfect 9.8. That isn't the biggest book. To find one that's almost perfect or perfect is pretty tough. That book was worth a lot more a couple years ago, without saying, but
Yeah.
that seems about right for most recent sell, probably about 50. I would think it should be worth about 100, because if it's a perfect book, like you said, it's about $250 or whatever. But yeah, I see guys that get slab books, and I don't think they're that. I've seen people try to sell a slab 9.8 of something that, let's say, first Kamala Khan. It was a $300, $200 book. I've seen people mark them down to 140. 120. Nobody wants them, and it's got to be a pretty significant book to get over $100 because you can get a lot of things. What's up, D?
Oh no, Norrin Rad here is saying he likes my double D up here,
Oh, Double D.
the Daredevil.
Mm-hmm. What up, Dope? Dope says any big book slabbed all day. Okay. Well, me and Rob differ. I enjoy having slabs. I don't crack them. Have you ran across? For me, Rob, it's like I'll buy a slab. I'll keep it in the slab once I buy it. Have you had to buy slabs because that's all there was available, or do you always just buy raw?
I mean, the only reason why I have the one slab of the Journey into Mystery was because on Strictly Comics, I got a big run from MT, Matt Taylor, and it was a good run. And he also had that slab. And I'm going, well, I don't collect slabs, but I'm throwing it in. I'm not going to say no to a free book. So I took that. I just haven't had the time to pop it out because, as you were saying before, with when you're dealing with Mylar, this was the first book I ever put into Mylar, and it's unforgiving. Prior to it being in my hands, and this was given to me for free by an attorney. This thing used to have a corner there, but when I first put it in the Mylar, I took off that corner right there.
Oh,
Shaved. That was too close for comfort.
that's the one
And
to
just
sign too, wasn't it?
Yeah, first page. And if I was going to sign it anywhere, because, CGC will just say it's writing on book, PGX will at least do, or I think it's PGX, they'll do the confirmation, but I'd rather it be the Skinner's box, or whether or not the cat's alive or dead, I'm just going to leave that to chance. But when you were talking about this book, this was like a $2,000 book. And at the beginning of the year, I think I got it for $250, and it would probably be a 9.8, but I just wanted to have it because I had this dumbass story of day one when it came out. I pick it up and I go, hey, this looks cool, but I don't do second prints. Oh, it's the first cover.
Oh, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, am I missing out on money because I don't slab certain books? Maybe. And do I regret it? Not really. It comes and goes, I guess for preservation, it's all right. But even Rob had a good point. It does take up a lot of space. Like I only got maybe 60 slabs. It takes up just as much room as like a long box for them 60 slabs, maybe more.
When you heard the other day where Tom was in that argument with the other guy, and I'm not going to name names or try and draw any kind of criticism or drama, but we heard that Tom had a short box, and many people went, well, that doesn't seem like a lot of comics. If you're dealing in books and that's basically your entire job, your entire life, you're going to have a maybe higher standard of what you want in your personal collection. So my guess would be whatever's in his box, I don't know if it's nothing but slabs or raw, but each book, most of them would be worth more than some people out there's entire collection combined just for one book.
I don't know. Yeah, until we know what he has. Like, I know he has a Journey 83 and a freaking one of those first Hellboys, not
Salt Lake City Comic Con edition
Yeah,
that's on the back.
The
He was
one
so
San
happy to
Diego.
get $10,000.
I thought it was San Diego.
San Diego's the one with the first time he's in a regular comic. This was just a program.
Oh, that's the other one. Yeah, that was the Grail Girl, right?
I've never seen one.
No, I've heard about it, but I know the San Diego. I forgot about that one. Yeah, that one's a little more tougher. That's like getting the Savage Dragon Fantastic comic or something.
Oh,
Like
the
I've seen that
graphic
one.
comics one?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, any of those 3 issues are going to be over at least $1,000 in shit tier grade.
What's the Hellboy? The Dime 6? That's a pretty, not Hellboy. Yeah, Hellboy.
There's Dime Comics. That's an Italian comic. I think they only made 5,000 of them, and it's overseas. So good luck finding it. It's like trying to find First Death's Head over here from that old UK Transformers book.
Yeah, I think what killed Slippery yesterday or a couple of days ago was the fact that Tom said he only had a short box, and that blew his mind. And then Tom also said, I love it. I love comic books. And Slippery was like, I'm kind of empty. I feel hollow buying these things. And I actually don't recommend buying floppies. You should just get omnis. What the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, my question now would be, so why do you feel empty, yet you still make content? Why not just retool and go to something else?
Why do you have so many fucking comic floppies and you are telling people they shouldn't have them? None of it makes sense to me. I mean, to go around and blame people for buying your collection, what kind of shallow ass person just only buys shit people? That's bullshit. It's like you got
Here's
those books because you like them.
here's Sticky's problem. Like now, I don't watch his content, but I've seen a few clips. He's a smart guy. All right, he knows how to talk. He knows how to articulate. Um, he does well for himself. He really thought that by bringing Tom onto his channel, he was going to be able to outfox and outsmart him. And Tom just outclassed him from top to bottom. Um, and that's the thing that Sticky wasn't prepared for, is Tom has had to answer these questions before. He hasn't answered. He wasn't asking new questions like you're peddling books, you're affecting the market. Like Tom has heard that before. Tom is ready for that question before. It's like a politician. Like whether or not the politician is lying or not, they're ready to answer the question. Um, and he came unprepared. He was ill equipped to deal with that conversation. Um, and the other part of it that I agreed with Tom about, he's building his channel around drama, and dude, that's not sustainable. It's stupid.
It, Biggie, if something happened to you, do you think Melody would know the volume of your comics if they were slab? If they're slab, there's no disputing what a book is worth. I've explained Melody what books and areas are worth money, so she knows if it's in a Mylar, it's probably worth something, and if it's in a top loader, it's probably worth a little more. If it's in a slab, it might be worth a little more. So I think she'll have a good idea. But
Biggie, you tell Melody for real. You tell her that if something ever happens to you, to get a hold of me, and I will help her with pricing out what she has so that she can make the appropriate purchases or sales, and
I'm
without me buying them. You tell her also that if I give her like a fucking cash value for all of it, I'm full of shit. All right, but but I would sit down with her and actually go through like the collection, whether we do like a StreamYard or like, dude, if something happened to you, like you're gone. I could even go down there and help. Like, I would do that like in a heartbeat. But
I would
yeah,
I would ask her to have like you 84 and Doc show her the ropes but I would, if they weren't, D's good, 84 Doc would probably put you in the right direction, but at the end of the day I want her to be able to not have to sell them and give them to my son is the ultimate goal. So hopefully something happens.
but
That's
there are
what
times when something really bad happens, like that, she may need that money.
Mhm.
Like that's a legitimate thing. Like you don't want that to happen, but um, I told my wife like, hey, if anything ever fucking goes wrong with me, like she has a list of my collection and what the fair market value is. Like it's the CLZ link. So she knows like, hey, click on that link. It tells her how much the shit's worth, and you just go from there. So
Yeah, this is just a hobby for me, and if shit does hit the fan, these are expendable. This is why I've been collecting all these books, so if there are hard times, I can make them a little fucking easier. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
shit happens. It's just not gonna break my heart. Hopefully, it don't, but um, it's what it is. We can't like worry that much about what happens when we're gone. We're gonna be gone. We're gone.
well,
You
no, no,
know,
no. I could not disagree with you more.
really.
It's
So
just
many people.
easing the pain of not having to put a financial burden with burial costs and whatever else might be associated with it. They just have a small list of your most expensive or most popular books that they can put up real quick and go, okay, we have that covered. Or in your case with D, put up that X-Men 1, funeral costs covered. Anything else is gravy for the family to help make extra money, put the kids through college, pay for damages on the home.
Well, and
Yeah.
not just the comic books though, Biggie. Like it's more than that. Like people need to be prepared for their end, so that their loved ones can process it the proper way. So
Hmm.
many people die without having put any thought or effort into that. And I can tell you, with having to deal with both my parents, that shit is not fun. And
Mm-mm.
and it takes a bad situation that is hard to ever even get over, and it makes it 10 times worse because you now feel this pressure and weight to get their burial done and their funeral process and what happens to their belongings and just
Well,
like
I could tell you though, D, like kind of the same way you have faith in Mrs. D. Runk taking care of it. I kind of feel the same way about Melody. Like she's pretty savvy. She could probably figure it out. But I appreciate it. And if if you needed help, you wanted help, I would try to help you. But I don't think that either one of us want to see our books get laid out to the community right after we pass. We hope our family can keep them. Is all I'm saying.
well, I don't have a son, so unless my wife would want them for herself to remember me by. But here's the other thing, dude. Like I just said, like and I've said it 100 times before. Like if something ever happened to my parents, or like when something happened to my parents, like I kept a few things, but I didn't keep a ton of shit. Like I kept a very few sentimental things, and then the rest I just got rid of. And if my wife didn't want all my comic books in the house, like I wouldn't be mad at her for that. I'm gone. What am I going? Unless she's gonna bury me with them, like, like hey, send me into the grave with the X-Men one. You can sell the rest, babe. Go get them.
Right. Well, I think we had a pretty
One
good.
thing I can tell you,
Hmm.
I'll just leave you off on this. When I had to drive my dad across the country from Florida to go relocate to Washington, we had to wind up calling 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And you'd think that they'd keep this stuff to resell. No, they destroy it and then throw it over the balcony where they then dispose of it somewhere else. So unless you wind up having something assigned for a particular person in your family, or something can help alleviate financial stress, do it, because no one else is going to take care of the stuff that you have like you are going to take care of it.
I like Rad's opinion. I feel keeping a book raw is better value because grade isn't official. You can bargain to get deal selling or buying, but graded books are set to what they are harder to sell at higher prices. And I feel like people do like that assurance of having a book graded at the certain area, but I do think, I mean, just through experience, like buying, there's a reason why people that grade books buy raw books. They ain't buying graded books; they're buying raw books, then they grade them. You know what I mean? So it just makes sense to me.
It's just an extra layer of fun for the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like Rob, at any point in our conversation, and I've been on a panel with you when you've talked about this before. Have I ever told you that you should be grading your books?
No, you'd never say that. If
Yeah,
anything, it's that you're excited about your end of the hobby. I'm excited about my end. And one day, maybe not today, maybe 20 years from now, if they still exist, I'll have that extra layer. But for now, I'm perfectly content just going, hey, I found this cool thing.
yeah, and like so, I wouldn't want to sway anyone. I would give advice to people if like someone wanted to go hardcore into selling books. It would be I think it might be worth the investment to get them graded to add that value. The only reason why you wouldn't want to do that is if you wanted to um, inflate the value and you're worried that the grading would prove it to be wrong. Like, because there's a
Mm.
lot of books, man, that and a ton of them, and it's not fair. It's one of the shittiest parts about grading that certain books in a 9.8 could be worth $1,000, and then in a 9.6 it's worth 200. That's
Hmm.
dumb.
Hmm.
Um, so
I
and
agree.
it's all relative. It's all subjective. It can also be very expensive to grade all your books, especially if you don't sell a bunch. Like I don't sell a lot of books. So
And I hear that if you want to actually get a book graded and you want the better grade, you're going to have to pay for that grade, not try and cheap cut it because you'll get the lower grade as a result.
Mm. Well,
right.
the other thing is I was listening to Bigby McFly when he got his FF1 recently. Congratulations to him. The guy that sold it to him sold it as a raw book because they considered slabbing it. And at the grade they thought it could come out at, it wasn't worth the amount of money it would cost to get it slabbed. So he said it would have cost $700 to $800 to slab the book, and it was just too much of a cut in the potential of getting it slabbed for the maximum amount as opposed to selling it raw and not having to do that. So it's really chinky or cheap and crappy of CGC to say, oh, you got a $5,000, $6,000 book, give us 1/6 of your amount, just because we're going to look at it and put a piece of plastic on it. Like, you're not getting a 9.8, you're going to maybe get a 2 or 3.
If you want that extra grade bump, then you have to add on that extra couple hundred, maybe.
Right. So I just don't know, man. Like,
okay. I also forgot about this. Do you remember back at the beginning of the pandemic when we wound up seeing going around Instagram, CGC handling that Superman #1, and all of us were kind of a little freaked out by the little bit of rough handling of it. And yeah, if you get something sent in, half the time, I'm not even going to expect the same book back.
I think that when D got like 10 slabs, didn't you have some issues later that you didn't notice at first? What was that about, D? Do you remember?
No, are you talking about the on-site grading I did?
Yeah, Comic Tom looked at them all. I thought you said there was something that wasn't right when you got
There was
home.
one book. It was this one right here. They were supposed to grade it like this, and they put this book on the front, and this is the actual front cover. And they told me that they would put this one on the front, and then they didn't. But they fixed it right away. It literally took them like 2 minutes to take it to the back and flip it around and re-slab it. So they fixed it right away.
I mean, the funny thing is, a lot of the people that all these companies hired, they're not fans of comics, which I understand because it's easier to teach somebody that has nothing to do with the hobby to do the job. And then maybe the more veteran are handling those more expensive books. But knowing that, yeah, I entirely understand why things are put the wrong way or backwards or not even with a holder.
I am under the belief that if they have a book of the similar grade and they want to switch it out and give you something else, I don't know that they don't. I don't trust fucking anybody, but that's besides the point. I feel like you're either going to enjoy it or you're not, and I don't know if there's anything that all of us are going to agree on. None of us are going to all agree that raws sell better. None of us are going to all agree that slabs are better. None of us are going to all agree. This is a bunch of different opinions, and that's all there is to it.
And you ask every different dealer, depending on the region around the country, each one's going to have a different response. And it depends how they interact with their people. If they're dicks, yeah, they're not going to be selling anything, or they have really good prices. It's going to be a lot of factors to consider.
Well, it's because we all have our own experiences, and they probably work for every one of us. That don't mean that we're all right, though. You know what I mean?
I'm usually right.
I feel like I'm right. I feel like Rob's right.
I can be wrong, and I admit it when I am.
I could think of a few things I might have done wrong, but generally I'm right. Like, there was a few weird books that could have been 9/8 that would have probably marked at $500 I had that I sold for $30. But do I regret it? Not that bad. I don't care that much.
Hell, even for the collection that I have behind me here, I have everything marked with an approximate grade because if I ever have to go to sell, I can go, well, it was like close to a 6.5, but I'll take the price down a little bit. But once it gets to everything graded, yeah, it's either you pay the amount or you walk away and find it somewhere else.
I mean, I was hit with the question of what would happen if something happened to me, and some of my books are slab. Do I feel better about them being took care of and sold appropriately than I do the raws? Not really. I don't. There's some slabs that are only worth $50. I have that don't change the fact that don't mean shit. Yeah, I mean, they ain't worth much. Just because they're slab don't mean they're worth a lot of money, you know. So, like with Rob, all of his books are raw. I don't think there's any issue with that. People will be able to look at each book. There's internet. You look it up. You see what it's worth. You find somebody that can, and you know what it's worth. That's about it. You know, like they're going to have to do that with a slab book too, right?
Well,
And
I'll
give it
give
a
you
few more years. Oh, go ahead, D.
I'll give you a good example of someone that graded a book and it increased the value and it kind of screwed them over. Okay, there was a collector in the community, DS Comics. He had an amazing Spider-Man 14, the first appearance of Green Goblin, and he sent it in to get graded. And I don't remember the grade. But it was super high. I want to say it was like a 9.2 or a 9.4 for the first appearance of Green Goblin. And he was a little disappointed with the grade because it's a harder book to sell in such a high grade because it's worth so much more. Like you're less likely to actually get it sold. Um, and I could be wrong. It could have been an 8.0, but either way, like the grade was such that it made it very difficult to move. And oh, for him, he has a really expensive comic book, but it did provide extra difficulty in uh, getting that book sold. So
That's the way I look at a lot of modern 9.8s. Once you get the 9.8, that's a tough fucking sell. I know people want that perfect copy, but it's not. It's the most expensive way you're going to get it. You can hope to get a deal, but it's going to be tough. Like that's why a lot of people shop for 9.6s and 9.4s that can have defects that are taken away, like pressable defects, instead of just buying the 9.8. So I don't know, man. What was you going to say,
If
Rob?
you're also getting it online, and you'll have the person overinflate by saying everything's very hard to find, VHTF, this is a 9.8 candidate. When it gets to you, you're like, bitch, this was an 8. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
There might be some dealers online that you'll respect their knowledge, but if you're just willy-nilly looking for a particular book and you think you found it, and either they don't know how to send it properly, or there's going to be something that's a problem in transit, and yeah, I don't know how to approach it. In person is one thing because you can look at it, you can take it out, view it, and maybe put your sticky little hands on it. Yeah, get it day one. That's probably the easiest way if you're getting stuff actively as a collector today.
Yeah, I don't think any of it should be something that is looked at in the wrong light. Like, I'm glad to see that there's collectors like Rob and me that aren't into slabbing. I'm glad to see people like D and Steppo or Alan that enjoy it. And I don't know that either side's right, but I feel like both sides are passionate about their beliefs. So if we don't do what we feel like is right, then we're not doing the best we can capably. So I am doing the best I can. D's doing the best he can. Rob's doing the best he can. And that's our beliefs. And that's all there is to it. Like, there's not, I don't know if there is a right answer. You know what I mean?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's look at it like archaeologists. Ain't none of us here going to live forever. And if we plan on keeping these for the next generations, all we are is just the custodian of these books now until it gets into that next person's hands. And then it's up to them to take responsibility for it until the next generation. And hopefully we still have some of these in 1,000 years where maybe an archaeologist can go, holy shit, Amazing Spider-Man was Jesus.
Now, it does make me want to buy more top loaders. I'm a big fan of top loaders, even the Gator Guards. Like, I'm not a fan of having someone grade my book, but I do like hard plastic to keep even the BCWs I have. I love my BCWs. So maybe I'll just make sure all my bigger books are in heavier plastic before too long. Is about as
As
far
long
as
as sunlight's not hitting it, you're good.
right.
And you've noticed
Rob,
that a
now,
lot of the plastic on the between the CGC labels, PGX, after 10 years, after 20 years, they don't quite look the same on day one, because if it's being exposed to the sun or it's not being put in a cool, dark place, the plastic will start getting brittle. After about maybe 50, 60, 80 years, we're going to have to say it. Not all 9/8s are going to be the same, especially after you had those Newton ring scandal. And people are going to be eventually sending a 9/8 in for grading. You'll have a graded 9/8 of a 9/8.
What's up, D?
no, Rob, I was going to tell you that it is yet to be disproven that I am immortal. So I might just have these books forever.
Well,
Rule number one, dude, don't die.
I did name myself the Immortal Biggie Shack for a reason, but you know, it's okay. So Rob
Dude, I've
already
been shot multiple times. If there's an immortal here, it's me.
you should be the immortal near mid. You know, you should name yourself that.
I'm just the worst. I'm the Kurgan from Highlander.
Oh, synthetic panels. I was talking about you earlier today. How are you doing? I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. That's right. Hey, still, what up, 35 cent? All right. So the last
Hey,
topic.
he was asking you what the grade is on that Hulk.
Oh, the Hawk one behind me. Oh, mine. Oh man, you know, I only get 9/8 copies of Hawk One, man. It's a fact.
You notice the barcode, right? Dude has a Hulk too. Given to him
Yeah.
by the community. It's awesome.
And
It's got a hot to it.
I was recently educated on that. That is a fantasy series, so don't you guys doubt that. All right. So Rob touched on the last topic before we get out of here. Now, the big argument I hear also about the financial reasons why people keep the book. It's easier. I don't agree with that. The second one was they stay preserved better. Now, I can't argue that it's probably safer in a slab. It probably is. But I have said, like, I've only damaged like 10 books. Now, I'm going to tell y'all how I've damaged my books. All right. Is it impossible to drop a slab and damage your book? No. It is you can do that, first of all. So
I watched it happen at a show.
You've had it happen at a show?
No, I watched it happen. A guy walked away from his table for a few minutes so he could grab a burger at the place and said, "Hey, can you watch this booth for me?" to the guy next to him. And this was at a hotel where it was against one of those accordion sort of doors, and that thing just went whoomp.
Yeah. Yeah, so it can happen. So for my I'm gonna tell y'all, I'm gonna let y'all take turns if you've had any experiences too. Rob showed us that he put it in a Mylar. I feel like that's the number one no, in my opinion, is a really sharp, tight Mylar is not recommendable, especially with an old book and tape with an old book that it has chipping. You be very careful using these Mylars, I would say, if you don't have everything slabbed and you do books things. So for me, as of late, I used to only get Silver Age polys. I've moved up to Golden Age. Very soft, very forgiving, and I've been double boarding as of late too. So I think for my recommendation to keep a book without it being damaged, get a Golden Age poly and board and put it in a top loader. That's my recommendation for keeping a book. So you could drop a book, you could crunch a spine. I've only done that like 2 or 3 times. I've sliced 2 or 3 books, and that's the amount of me damaging books. Like, as far as I can remember, I maybe damaged 6 to 10 books. Now, D, have you ever damaged a comic book?
I've not. I'm not like bragging about it. I've almost every book I've bought since I started collecting, I want to say 6 years ago, I've pretty much kept in the condition that I found them in. I've had 2 slabs that I've chipped by dropping them, and the book survived inside of it just fine, and I just had it reholdered, and but yeah, I've like, and I've come close, man. I had I've had the tape hit my cover, and I
Oh,
had to carefully like and peel that sucker back. But yeah, no, it's I've gotten lucky so far. I'll knock on the wood.
yeah, I might have tape pulled one book now that you mentioned that again. So I know Rob's had a hell of a history. I'm gonna let you express yours, but I want to remind you of your Rusty Staple fiasco, and you already talked about your Superman. So indulge us. How many books have you damaged, Rob, or had damaged?
So that's one of the things that a few years ago, I mean, I really wasn't buying books that were more than $100 more than a decade ago. $100 would have been a lot. But the most expensive book I got was that Action Comics 252 or 242 First Brainiac. And I get it home. I'm looking at it. It's like the pages are nice. Hey, this staple feels a little, I guess that's rust. Fast forward 2 years after I'm starting to put stuff in Mylar. And yes, if you have a rusty staple, it'll oxidize the paper and it will detach from that staple, the cover. So that's something to take into consideration right away. No rusty staples. Prior to 1968, there was no such thing as a comic book bag. So complete is fine with me. After 1968, really, there's no excuse. But for myself, what have I done? The last time I damaged a book was Maniac of New York. The first issue that came out, I was putting it in a regular bag and board, and I was still using just regular tape then. And I went, wait a second, I should have put two boards in this. I go to take it out, it catches on the tape, and that was the last time I used tape because I had plenty of people telling me here, use the blue painter's tape. Even if it catches on a book, it is very unlikely to rip it off unless it's some 1940s book and it's caught on the Marvel chipping, that kind of stuff. So other than that, yeah, I had right up above here all my Dave Stevens that the cleaning lady, when she was in here, she wound up trying to open up this door when it was hanging too low and everything just went whomp. Luckily, they all fell face front, but there were two on the end that corners were damaged. So now you can't really see it, but there's a line of fishing wire going across each one of these because you can never expect earthquake. Everything goes crashing down and then you destroy the corners. I've heard about it happening during the earthquake of 1989 over in San Francisco. Had a lot of people damage books back then. As far as fire, keep one of these handy just in case and make sure that it actually reads that it's full. Because if it's not, all you do is just have a nice little paperweight that's not going to extinguish your room if it catches fire.
So I see Lady Fantastic. Shout out to Lady F. You burnt a comic with cigarettes? Well, I do
Me
not
too.
recall that. You have. Oh, that's what it is. I was gonna say I don't think I've done that. How the fuck did you do that? I didn't even know you smoked cigarettes.
This was back when I was a kid.
That's amazing. All right, well, that's about all I got time for. It's Sunday, so all my places close pretty quick on Sunday. I better go get a pizza. But I'm gonna show a couple books. You guys got something you want to show before we go?
Right here.
You burnt that with a cigarette?
When I was 16 years old, I went to this mall where they had a comic book show. I picked this up for, I think, maybe $20. I get it home. I'm outside on the ledge and I'm smoking a cigarette and I see my dad
Let
pulling
me
on
see
up.
it again. I'm sorry. I missed it. Where's
There
the
you go.
burn? Oh, I see it. I think I see it. Oh, it's right there. Okay, I thought it was by his hip or something. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah, so I see my dad pulling on up, and I'm only 16. I shouldn't be smoking a cigarette. Ash falls down as I'm looking over, and that's when I see it fall down. I brush it away from the book, and since then, I never smoke cigarettes as I'm reading.
Mm. So this book has tape, and CGC doesn't hit you hard for tape as long as it's clear. So that's another weirdo thing CGC does. I don't quite understand, but I'm not mad at them. Like that's fine with me. It makes the book worth more money as a detached. But yeah. Um, I like my raw Mylar books. This one took a while to get. This was one of the books that people say like when you get a slab book, at least you know what it is. You don't have to count the pages. Da da da. So I bought an ASM 20 that was supposed to be complete and it wasn't. So I had to buy this copy also. This one is complete. Thank you, Cali Comics. But so you got count your pages, everybody. If you ain't gonna buy slab, you could still count your pages and figure out if you have a complete book. You don't have to have a slab to tell you, but you know. And one more. This one might be worth slabbing, but I'm not much of a slabbing guy. Just because I got it so cheap and it's kind of high grade. But I feel comfortable. I'd probably make $100 off that in the right buyer without slabbing it. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. That's about it.
Well, I also like to counterpoint that you're not going to slab any of your books.
No.
If you and you're not opposed to having a slab, but if you have it raw, it's staying raw, whether you sell it or keep it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm completely fine with having just a raw copy of something, and I'm not too worried about, especially like when I buy an expensive book. I guess until I damage an expensive book, I'm going to just feel confident that I'm not going to damage it. You know, like it just hasn't happened. I don't plan on it happening. So, all right, chat. Thank you, Rob, for coming on. Thank you, D. We're out of here. Hope y'all had a good night.
That's use painter's tape.
Move to the side.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Use painter's tapes, guys. Some painter's tape is sticky as fuck too, though, Rob. You gotta be just make sure it ain't super sticky, whatever you use. All right.
I used to think you were just about the most perfect person in the world.